getting older. My friends are getting older. That sucks. That's my buddy the other day, and he goes, I got my party pills. I'm like, you got Molly? He's like, no, Tums.
Good morning. It's Monday, January the 5th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the American Thinker. All of that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now, Varney and Company.
Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, 2026. It's a new day in the exercise of American power. Great to be back. Here's the latest. Nicolas Maduro has been transferred to the federal court in Manhattan, New York. The indictment against him details years of killing, torture, and smuggling literally tons of cocaine. In Venezuela, a switch in tone. Delcy Rodriguez, who took over the government, now says she will cooperate with the Trump administration. The president seems to be offering a carrot and a stick, restore law and order, and if you don't, further intervention is possible. Here at home, the Democrats are questioning the legality of the operation, its constitutionality, and the risks of American military action. The Democratic Socialists of America want Maduro to be released. The mayor of New York, Zoran Mandami, is a former member of that party. He called Trump to voice his concern. There's one Democrat, Senator John Fetterman, who told Fox this morning, he's pleased with Trump's action. Well, we're starting the first full week of 2026 on the markets. Things look very different from the Biden years. Here's how the markets are reacting. First of all, the price of oil, little change this morning. It has moved up 70 cents, $58 a barrel, but it's still well below $60. Gas keeps falling. The national average for regular now down to $2.81. And in Oklahoma, the average for regular is $2.21. I'm sorry, that's Oklahoma. Sorry. In where is it? We've got somewhere at $2.21. Is it Oklahoma? Okay. All right, Oklahoma, $2.21. Lucky people. Why does it say $2.39 on my screen? It's $2.21. I'm telling you. It really, no, I know what it is. It's Arkansas. Arkansas is $2.21 per gallon. And the producers are telling me, keep going. Oil stocks are strong. That is interesting. A flood of new oil on the market should cut prices, yet the oil majors are rallying. Look at that. We've got Halliburton, Diamond Offshore, Patterson. There's plenty more of the drillers than the major league oil companies. They're all higher. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ, look at them go. The Dow's up 50, S&P up 25, NASDAQ now up 212 points. Previously, when America's military went into action, stocks tended to rally. We're beginning to see that this morning. As for Bitcoin, we're moving to $92,000 a coin, 92.7 right now. And gold, 4,400 and change, 44.33. All right, on the show today, why on earth does the left want Maduro released? There were demonstrations around the country calling out what the socialists believe is colonialism and an illegal action. Why aren't Democrats cheering on the removal of a man who has wrecked his country and did his best to wreck ours? One more. Today, in Minnesota, Governor Walz holds a news conference about his political future. A lot of speculation about that, given the massive fraud in his state. He will end his campaign for a third term. That's the speculation. We should know his decision today because he starts to speak at 12 noon. What a day. It is Monday, January the 5th, 2026.
And that was Varney and Company, nonprofit news now. And that's the number one thing that has to happen if we want to change our politics. We must change the news. The news must return, go back to nonprofit status. Because the politicians all complain about low information voters. Well, the news people are the reason we are low information voters. Change the news, change the voters. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of, it's called Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, and the individual is going to be interviewing a member of Congress about why or why not in terms of congressional notification before going into Venezuela.
Secretary Marco Rubio and President Trump explaining why congressional leaders were not notified about the Venezuela operation before it began. Let's bring in one of the members of the Gang of Eight, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford. And you heard from Marco Rubio, who also was the chairman. He was chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Do you feel like the notification was proper and timely?
Yeah, I do, and here's why. You just heard the president say you need to keep that universe of individuals who know what's going on to a bare minimum for operational security. And when you open the door to congressional notification, you're basically opening the door to potential leaks. Now, I get that. Now, as a member of Gang of Eight, I got to be careful about what I say and how I say it. But the reality is, there was no congressional notification requirement here because this was a law enforcement action, first and foremost. Secondly, even if there was a congressional notification, there's not a pre-notification requirement, which plays into the idea of operational security. You have to maintain, if we're going to keep our operators safe, we have to maintain the highest degree of operational security to ensure mission success. That was what was taking place here. I got a call from not only Secretary Rubio, but Secretary Hegseth in the immediate aftermath of this action. And basically, what Secretary Rubio said was exactly what he just said in that press report, that it was a trigger-based operation that had to be made in real time with the various considerations, both weather and intelligence and everything that was required to be able to execute this in a timely fashion and to optimize the idea that we're going to actually get a success here.
Okay, so when you're listening to this guy, he's saying what doesn't have to happen, we don't have to do this, they don't have to do that. And what does that mean? It means loopholes. Loopholes. That this is a guy, and the president assumes the same thing, that the Constitution has loopholes, and that all they have to do is exploit those loopholes. There's nothing in the Constitution that says I can't do this, or I can't do that. Wrong. The way it works is some people in the United States of America have rights, the people. Some people do not, the President of the United States. The President of the United States is authorized. What is the difference between the two? The people that have rights get to do whatever they want so long as it's not prohibited by law. The government, i.e. Donald Trump and the members of Congress, can only do what's authorized by law. What that means is there are no loopholes in the law. There's no loopholes in the Constitution. Shame, shame, shame on this congressman for not knowing that. Back in a minute. Thank you. And then this is the called the Sunday Briefing, and it's on Fox. And the interviewer is interviewing a Democrat member of the Armed Services Committee.
Happy New Year, Jackie.
Happy New Year. Well, now from the other side of the aisle, let's bring in Virginia Democratic Senator and member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Tim Kaine. Senator, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Jackie.
So, sir, the administration has said over and over that Maduro could have done this the easy way, but he chose the hard way. Listen to this.
Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight.
So when Senate comes back to Washington, you are forcing a vote that would block further military action without congressional approval. But is now really the time to handcuff the administration from taking any military action when there's a power vacuum that was created by Maduro's refusal to surrender?
Jackie, it's never the wrong time to enforce the Constitution. The Constitution says the United States shouldn't be at war without a vote of Congress. This president has waged military action against Iran, Nigeria, boats in open waters, and now Venezuela. And so, yes, I'm going to insist that my colleagues vote on whether we should be at war with Venezuela just on a presidential say-so. It was interesting. You asked my colleague, Senator Schmidt, should Congress affirm this action? And he chose not to answer your question because I think he knows what the law is. He referred to the administration's 40-page legal rationale. That's a legal rationale concerning strikes in international waters that specifically says it does not apply to provide a legal rationale for a strike against a sovereign nation like Venezuela. Maduro was a bad guy, but the U.S. shouldn't be at war in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico, Nigeria, or anywhere else if Congress doesn't have the guts to debate it and vote on it so that service members who are risking their lives, and there were 2 injuries here, know that they're doing that mission with the support of the nation's political leadership determining that the mission is in the national interest.
But to Senator Schmidt's point, how is this an act of war if the administration was, executing an arrest warrant? The government is functioning. There is a vice president that's just been sworn in, to his point. And, the U.S. military, Marco Rubio said there's no expectation that there will be any additional action, that, what the military did was in support of, exercising the arrest warrant and executing that.
Dropping bombs, authorizing covert operations, sending in the military, deposing the government, standing at a press conference and saying, we're now going to run Venezuela. And when asked, who does that mean, we're going to run Venezuela, the president pointed over his shoulder to the Secretary of Defense and the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of State. To say this isn't a military action that calls for a congressional response, and many of my colleagues want to avoid voting if at all possible, but to say this isn't a military action that requires congressional authorization, I think is to put your head in the sand.
Okay, so that's good enough for right now. What he's making the argument is that the ends don't justify the means. The problem, and he's right, he's absolutely correct. He's on the correct side of this issue. Unfortunately, he's a Democrat. He's a Democrat and he's a liberal. And he is a hypocrite. Because if it was a Democrat president, he would be backing the Democrat. If it was Biden that was doing this, he'd be backing him all the way. Oh, no, Joe Biden is absolutely correct to do this. The Constitution doesn't matter. Laws don't matter. Congress doesn't matter. All that matters is the ends justify the means. So that's too bad. So I guess it's going to be left to the rank-and-file American to get this straightened out. The ends don't justify the means. And this, what we've seen the other day, is a government that thinks it has rights. It has conflated the rights of the individual with the authority of the government. Okay? And they're separate, and ne'er the twain shall meet. Remember, the government has no rights. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of motivation.
People think there's like this outside circumstance that controls success. The success fairy flies down from the universe and taps people on the head. And I used to think like, I wonder if I'll get to be one of these successful people. And it's just the wrong way. It's just not what it is.
There's this whole thing in the world now. Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to build a big company. Everybody wants a great body. Everybody wants a great relationship. Everybody wants a bunch of money. But nobody's willing to do the work on the hard days. They're willing to do the work on the good days. Man, I just listened to a great Instagram video. Man, I'm fired up. Yes, someone said yesterday. Here we go. But what happens when 3 no's in a row? Somebody quits on you. Somebody hurts you. And you're feeling physically ill. Can you get up those days?
Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. At the center of bringing any dream into fruition is self-discipline. And self-discipline is saying, although I don't feel like doing it, I'm going to do it like I love it. You cannot win any battle against anything in the world if you can't win the battle against your own mind.
Can you push through? Can you do what winners do? And when you do what winners do, you get what winners get. You get what Jordan gets. You get what Tiger Woods gets. There's a great story. Kobe Bryant tears his Achilles tendon, but they need him to make the free throw, to stay in the game, to win. They're like, Kobe, you tore your Achilles. It's okay, bro. He walks out on the court and makes 2 free throws with a torn Achilles tendon. That's why he's Kobe. That's why he was Jordan. That's why he's Tiger. That's why she was Serena. And I promise you, if you went through the lives of these people you admire, they played hurt. They found a way. They built that muscle. It's the separator.
So if you can take all the days that you feel like shit, or all the days that you're distracted, or all the days you're pissed off, you don't feel like doing it, and you make those A+ productive days, how the f*** can you lose? The answer is you can't.
So why not have a blueprint, a mindset, a habit, a way of being that says, oh, I see what's going on here. Okay, I'm stepping up. I'm taking more action. I'm coming back stronger. I'm built for this. And by the way, I know some of you listening go, I've just never been that way. That's okay. Neither were these people until they started to be that way. No one's born like that. What happens is they all hit a wall at one point and said, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of quitting. I'm tired of giving in when I'm hurt. I'm tired of backing up. I'm going to stop. At some point, Kobe Bryant said, I'm going to stop backing up. I'm going to stop making excuses. I'm going to stop quitting. I'm going to stop flinching. And I'm going to step into this.
This is a test that you need to pass. And there will be tests every day that you need to pass. And the more tests you pass, the easier it is to pass them. It's never going to go your way. It's never going to be easy. There are always going to be things that break. There are always going to be things that go wrong. And your job is to get through this regardless of what comes your way. You know what I say when I get out of bed? I'm the baddest motherfucker on the planet. It doesn't matter what happens today. It doesn't matter if there's a fucking fire or an earthquake or tornado or the fucking heavens rain down fire and brimstone on my motherfucking face. I'm getting my shit done. And that's the difference between people who lose and people who win. They have a mentality that you are not going to fucking touch me. You are not going to throw me off track. And it doesn't matter if it takes until 3 o'clock in the morning. My list of shit gets done every motherfucking day.
And that's why habits habits matter, rituals matter, routines matter. Because when we're down, when we're under pressure, when we're hurting, we resort to habit mode. And if your habit's to get up and fight, if your habit's to get up and do it anyway, if your habit is to show up and give it your best, regardless of how you feel, then that will be your default setting. But if your habit has always been, I gotta rest a little bit, I gotta evaluate this, I gotta take a breather, because that's what everybody does. But everybody's not successful.
You got to make the decision before you get to the battle. When things get hard, you go harder. You break that thing that's in front of you. You don't let it break you.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the last three paragraphs in an article from the American Thinker called "It's 2026, Your Race Card Has Expired." It seems to me that we have an opportunity, we, the conservatives, a mission if we accept it, and that mission is to create a new narrative that all government spending is corruption and grift. Yeah, maybe it helps people occasionally, but that's just an accident. So when our liberal friends accuse us of being racist towards helpless Somalis, we say, sorry, ma'am, your race card has expired. Check your smartphone. Or we say, sorry, I don't understand. The Somalis get billions of dollars in spending and they all vote Democrat. That's got nothing to do with race. That's just corruption as usual. Maybe you can explain the race angle to me, dear liberal friend, because after all, you are educated and I am ignorant. And that's by Christopher Chantrell. So a couple of things wrong with this. Number one, no true conservative has liberal friends. We've turned our backs on them long time ago. Second thing is when he says that if we're hit with the race card, we say, sorry, your race card is expired. Well, that's, I don't know, somewhat poetic, I guess, but it's wrong. What you really say is, what race do you think I am anyway? Because the liberals have created an environment in which people get to be whatever they want to be whenever they want to be it. Okay, so I can decide today I'm black. I can decide tomorrow I'm Hispanic. I could decide today that I'm a male. I could decide tomorrow that I'm female. They created that rule. I'm just playing by it. So again, when somebody plays the race card with you, that's what you have to consider saying, gee, what race do you think I am anyway? Back in a minute. Thank you. Now another article on from the American Thinker, the kinetic war on drugs. This last few weeks, Donald Trump's changed the war on drugs. He made it kinetic. That's the subtitle. And yes, true, he's basically done what previous presidents have done in insisting that the ends justify the means and might makes right. But at least he's done us the favor of punishing non-citizens, whereas presidents like Ronald Reagan have punished citizens. First paragraph, the United States war on drugs has seemed insurmountable over the decades. From the era of reefer madness to just say no, the U.S. has struggled to stem drug use and overdose deaths. Democrats saw the answer in giving away free needles, legalizing marijuana, and decriminalizing possession of drugs. This led to increasing drug use and more deaths than ever before from drug use. It's not just the drug use, but the surging crimes by drug users committing robberies to support their habits. Drug use spilled out onto the streets, literally, as addicts became homeless and the homeless clustered in cities, turning them into post-apocalyptic wastelands. Politicians favored remedies that didn't work, then demanded federal tax dollars to clean up the mess that their policies created. Actually, that sentence should read, liberal politicians favored remedies that didn't work and then demanded federal tax dollars to clean up the mess that their liberal policies created. The opening of the southern border allowed an influx of drugs into our country as well. The liberal media, who ignored the border crisis from the start, now is enabling the drug trade as an active partner. The rise of the cartels has devoured governments. Mexico is no longer run by the people, but by the cartels. Other South American countries were just as bad. In Venezuela, Maduro defied his defeat in an election and seized power. Allied with the cartels, he felt immune beyond the reach of any power. In 2023-2024, approximately 197,000 Americans died of overdoses. To give you a comparison, we'll skip the comparison. Reporting on these regularly would only make Democrat or liberal lawmakers look weak and ineffective. Rather than do their jobs, they provide ongoing cover. The last few weeks, Donald Trump changed the war on drugs. He made it kinetic. It began with designated Venezuelan-linked criminal networks, Cartel de los Soles, allegedly led by Nicolas Maduro, and Tren de Agua as foreign terrorist organizations. Then came the systematic destruction of obvious drug boats. This was the tipping point. Unlike previous presidents, Trump went to war against the cartels instead of going to war against the American people. There's no Biden finger-pointing and saying don't. Instead, he destroyed the incoming drugs and the people smuggling them. What should have been celebrated became controversial. This was fed by legacy media lackeys. Actually, this was fed by liberal media lackeys. Overnight, the Democrat Party sided with the cartels. The same people that had no problems with Obama blowing up terrorists were now filled with fake outrage. The pinnacle of this unfolded this weekend when Trump, acting on a long-standing Department of Justice indictment, flexed U.S. muscle and apprehended Maduro and his wife. This new doctrine, the Trump doctrine, was intended to send a message far beyond Venezuela. The era of presidents playing patty cake with the cartels and the politicians that supported them was over. Governments that profited from the deaths of Americans were put on notice. Countries like Colombia and Mexico are direct recipients of this message. We are done with drug deaths and the crimes that the drug trade brought to our shores. The new doctrine stated that the U.S. was going to act in the best interests of its people. If that means toppling governments, so be it. If our southern neighbors didn't take steps to shut down the lawlessness, we would. There is precedent for this in U.S. history, and that's an interesting thing to remember here. Precedent. That's key. When Pancho Villa raided American towns along the U.S. border, killing innocent civilians or citizens, the U.S. sent a military force into Mexico to stop him. The raid stopped. So what the author is suggesting is that the ends justify the means and might makes right. Back to the story. The message, like the one Trump sent, was received in December of 1989. We invaded Panama to remove another narco-terrorist, Manuel Noriega. There are risks in this alternative approach to the war on drugs. There are bound to be setbacks. Will Tren de Aragua respond with terror attacks in the U.S.? There's no way to know for sure. Well, no, I'm not going to worry about that. That's an effort to try to make me think that this is a really dangerous universe and that the only protector I have is the federal government. But I'm not going to worry about Tren de Agua being terrorists because they're not going to want to blow up their customers. I mean, it's just stupid. While Democrats or liberals with a faux sense of indignation will challenge every move he makes and the courts are bound to bog things down, at least Trump is trying something we haven't done in decades. We will never know if it's successful if it's not tried. While it's easy for Democrats and their lick-spittle media colleagues to criticize the president, none of them are reporting on how many American lives have been saved so far by the actions the White House has taken. That doesn't point to the Trump problem, but a leftist problem. At least in some cases, he's identifying who the actors are, Democrats and liberals versus Trump Republicans and conservatives. But shame on him. Here's his bio. Blaine Pardlow. Let me see this. Let me double check here. Parlow or Pardlow? Pardo is a New York Times best-selling and award-winning author canceled by one of his publishers in 2022. His conservative political thriller series, Blue Dawn, is the story of a violent overthrow of the government by radical progressives. His most recent series, Tenure, is about a Punisher-like hero that goes after the woke. He also authors the best-selling military science fiction series, Land and Sea. And so since he's allegedly conservative, I still say shame on him, for the whole article basically says the ends justify the means and might makes right, and which means to hell with the rule of law, which means he is not conservative. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now, moral politics.
While Bush held on to his extreme conservative base, Gore did nothing to hold on to the most progressive of Democrats, letting Green Party candidate Ralph Nader make fatal inroads into that base. Instead of attaching himself to the enormously popular Clinton, he distanced himself from Clinton and would not even let Clinton campaign for him in crucial states. Where Clinton projected empathy in public, Gore was wooden and appeared distant and self-righteous. Despite constant comment in the press, Gore did nothing to change his gesturing system. Where both Clinton and Bush understood the symbolic dimensions of politics, Gore missed it almost entirely and depended on policy prescriptions to carry the day. While Bush courted women and other nurturant swing voters with compassionate conservatism and other slogans, Gore ignored the nurturant vote and campaigned instead on the theme, "I'll fight for you." This was a disastrous choice. It not only ignored the nurturance theme, it contradicted that theme with the word fight. It also suggested powerlessness. It went against the very idea of the president as powerful, suggesting that being president wouldn't be enough, that he would still be struggling. It actually made Gore sound like a wimp, not the warrior he was trying to portray himself as. Moreover, Gore did not understand what strategy Bush was using. He did not know enough to attack Bush on the compassion issue, to portray himself as the true candidate of compassion. Where Bush campaigned on moral issues, Gore did not, and thus lost the moral high ground. The charge that he was dishonest and a manipulating politician who just wanted to win seemed to stick in the absence of a clearly delineated moral standpoint. Gore misunderstood the nature of the televised debates. He assumed that debates were won by scoring policy points, which should have made him the superior debater. Bush won by framing issues to his advantage, while Gore did not know how to reframe an issue. Gore responded instead with facts, figures, and policies, which let Bush confound him by retaliating with his own facts, figures, and policies. And the public, of course, could not tell the difference. All issues of statistics and math became fuzzy math. Gore attacked the Bush tax plan by pointing out that most of the savings would go to the top 1% of taxpayers. The assumption here was that all lower and middle-class voters, A, would be voting their self-interest, and B, would be resentful of the rich getting richer. Mistake A was that lower and middle-class conservatives, following strict father morality, believe that the rich deserve what they get, that they should keep what they earn, and that the tax cut would be moral. They were voting morality, not self-interest. See Chapter 10, pages 189 through 192. Mistake B was that a great many lower and middle-class voters admire and want to emulate the rich, and a high percentage, over 25%, actually thought they were, or eventually would be, in the top 1%. The top 1% argument is always pointless. It works with ideological liberals, but Gore already had their votes. Overall, it fails. In short, there was a major cognitive component to Gore's loss of what should have been a sure thing. Gore and those running his campaign did not understand the content of this book, the cognitive and symbolic dimension of politics, while Bush and his campaign managers did. The Florida vote count. Many people think that words are mere words, just labels for aspects of an objective reality. Cognitive linguists know better. The way we use language both reflects how we think about something and can impose on other people a way of seeing the world. Language matters, and the ideas, often metaphorical ideas, expressed by language matter. Here are 5 ways of conceptualizing and talking about an election. 1. A horse race. This is the most common metaphor for an election used in the media. The metaphor carries over certain common inferences about horse races to elections. Thus, we expect that 1. Everyone starts off from the same place and has to run the same course. 2. There are rules and people will obey them. 3. The more able candidate wins the election, just as the faster horse wins the race. 4. There are neutral officials who guarantee that the race is fair and who judge the winner in the case of a close race. 5. There is always a winner, and the winner of the race is the candidate that is ahead when the horses cross the finish line. 6. It doesn't matter how you win or much you win by, as long as you win. 7. There is also an etiquette of racing. The loser is supposed to take his loss graciously and not contest the call of the neutral judges. If he does not, he is a sore loser. 2. A football game. 1. The game is rough. It is supposed to be rough. Players get hurt. Toughness is required to win. You are supposed to play as rough as you can in order to win. A certain amount of dirty playing is expected. 2. There is a quarterback calling the plays. The other players have to do what he says, or they are taken out of the game or thrown off the team. 3. The game ends after a fixed time. The team ahead when the game ends wins. 4. It is a time-honored, respectable strategy for the team that is ahead toward the end of the game to run out the clock. That is, to use up as much time as possible to keep the other team from scoring. 5. Again, there are neutral judges who guarantee that the play of the game is fair and who determine the winner of a close game. 6. Again, it doesn't matter how you win or how much you win by, as long as you win. 7. And again, the etiquette required is that the loser be gracious in defeat and not be a sore loser. 3. A war. 1. This is a fight for survival and for who gets to rule. 2. Both sides are out for blood. 3. The candidate with the greater firepower, the best strategy, and command of the terrain will win. Not necessarily the one with the most ability. 4. Fine points of ethics may be reasonably overlooked when survival is at stake. 5. Again, it doesn't matter how you win or how much you win by, as long as you win. 4. A legal process for democratically establishing the will of the people. 1. Maximum voter participation is essential to establish the will of the people. Anything interfering with voter registration or actual voting delegitimates the election, should be considered illegal, and should be legally contestable. 2. The intent of the voter is foremost in establishing the will of the people. Anything interfering with voter intent being registered in such a way as to affect the outcome of the election should be illegal and make the election contested. 3. Every vote should be counted. 4. The vote count should be carried out impartially. 5. The election isn't over until the legal process has run its course. 6. If the election does not or cannot establish the will of the people, a new election should be held. 5. A political process that is just another aspect of a tough competitive world. 1. Everyone naturally seeks their self-interest. 2. The individual is responsible for making his own way. 3. Those disciplined and powerful enough to win competitions like elections rule, and should rule. All of these ways of conceptualizing an election entered onto the Florida vote count in the 2000 election. The media used the horse race metaphor as it always does. There are actually two versions of the metaphor. In the overall race metaphor, the race extends from the time candidates start to run to the actual election, and who is ahead is determined by polls. In the vote count version of the race metaphor, the race begins when the results start coming in, and who is ahead is determined first by exit polls and finally by official vote counts on election night, when no recounts have yet been done. A race that is too close to call on election night is something like a photo finish, where impartial judges later look carefully at the photos made at the finish line and decide the winner. In using the horse race metaphor for the election, the media gave a major advantage to Bush. It imposed an understanding of the election based on the metaphorical principle. There is always a winner, and the winner of the race is the candidate that is ahead when the horses cross the finish line. Moreover, each time a partial recount was made, the vote count version of the horse race metaphor was used. Each recount, however partial, was another race. People kept repeating this metaphorical inference over and over. Bush won on election night, and he won on every recount. When Gore's people protested that the election was a legal process that wasn't over and that no one had won anything until the legal process was completed, we entered into a national metaphor war. Conservatives, sticking with the race metaphor, called Gore a sore loser for protesting. Interestingly, The choice of election metaphors not only fit each side's partisan interests, but they also fit the moral worldviews of liberals and conservatives, but a positive good. It is an absolutely necessary condition for morality to exist. Without competition, there would be no need for discipline, and without discipline, people would not follow moral laws. For this reason, metaphors 1, 2, 3, and 5, horse race, football, war, and tough world politics, are all conservative metaphors. Thus, the conservative delaying tactics in counting the votes and in getting legal decisions were seen as legitimate by conservatives, a form of running out the clock, football metaphor, when they were ahead. Liberals, in accordance with nurturant parent morality, naturally chose metaphor 4, the legal process for democratically determining the will of the people. This follows from the nurturant notion of fairness, and from empathy with anyone denied a political voice. It is no accident that the liberal Florida Supreme Court should have used voter intent as the basis for a recount. It should also be said that the war metaphor is used commonly by political professionals in both camps. Both Democrats and Republicans have their war rooms. Metaphor 5, the tough world metaphor, played an especially important role in the election. The conservative reaction to the confusion over the butterfly ballot in West Palm Beach was that if you can't figure out the ballot, your vote shouldn't count. Their reaction to the hanging chads was that if you can't punch a clean hole in your ballot and check it, then your vote shouldn't count. In other words, if you don't have enough discipline, too bad for you. You have to accept the consequences. Even Justice Sandra Day O'Connor was reported to have made such a remark at a private gathering, and in oral argument before the court, she remarked, "Well, why isn't the standard the one that voters are instructed to follow, for goodness sakes? I mean, it couldn't be clearer." The thousands of blacks who were either purged from the voting rolls or falsely told the polls had closed were seen by many conservatives as not having been disciplined enough to make sure they voted. Metaphor 5 was also the basis for the feeling of moral superiority on the part of conservatives when Katherine Harris and other conservative election officials used their power openly to Bush's advantage. Because Republicans controlled the offices of the governor and the Secretary of State, they controlled the everyday legal mechanism governing the election. What they did was the law, and hence Bush's people could say that they supported the rule of law. The term rule of law is important in strict father morality, since law defines what is right and wrong, and rule of law characterizes moral authority. Finally, the Supreme Court's 5-4 ruling by conservative justices that made Bush president was an instance of metaphor 5. The liberal metaphor, metaphor 4, depends on the legal process, which, in the metaphor, is an idealized legal process. But in real life, the law of the land is decided by judges, who are political appointees, through the use of naked power. The conservative justices had no qualms about using their power first to stop the vote count with Bush ahead, and then, since the count could not be completed on time, issued an arbitrary ruling that was tantamount to simply choosing Bush as president. Their ruling came right out of the strict father moral system. Florida's intent of the voter standard for judging ballots is unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause because of the absence of specific standards to ensure its equal application. It further held that the formulation of uniform rules to determine intent based on these recurring circumstances is practicable and, we conclude, necessary. Standards and rules are at the heart of strict father morality. Rules distinguish right from wrong, and standards define what counts as being disciplined enough. The arbitrariness of the ruling is indicated by the fact that it was explicitly made not to set a precedent.
And that was the next part of Chapter 25, Moral Politics, How Liberals and Conservatives Think, by Dr. George Lakoff. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.